massive round of applause, Tim Schafer.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for sticking around to this, the very last talk. I don't know why I have the honor of going last, except for I know Andy knows I'm a Breaking Bad fan, and so I won't go long. Joke's on you, I have TiVo. It's totally taken care of. But first, this is the last talk, I think. It's been such a great conference being here with all of you and seeing all this crazy collection of people and seeing it so well organized and curated. I just wanted to have one big thanks and round of applause for both Andys over here. Great job. Amazing talk. Awesome. So it's been so great to hear all these stories of just crazy, magical, good and bad things happening to people because they make connections with technology and the internet, and I was just so full of inspiration. And to be honest, like my New Year's resolution this year was every time I'm tempted to use the word envious or jealous, and if you just say inspired instead, it just makes you sound like a better person. It's like when you're at your friend's house and they have 2 bathrooms in their house and you only have 1, you're like, oh, your house is so inspiring. It's just a tip if you want to hide the darkness with it. Anyway. So a lot of these great stories have been so fun to listen to, and people going to college and then tumbling out of college and starting a company and selling it for $1 billion are just very inspiring to me. And I hope I strive to have a story that fills you with that same inspiration. That kind of weird magic connected moment for me happened not at the beginning of our career, although I was pretty lucky in the beginning of my career. It happened kind of at the middle or like at the end of my career, depending on how this talk goes. But like, and I'm gonna just back it up a little bit and tell that story as quick as I can so you guys can all either watch Breaking Bad or go play with the baby goats in the field, depending on what type of a person you are. So just to start with something broad that everyone can enjoy, adventure games, right? I was thinking about this a lot when Jonathan was talking, because it's just, we hear the word niche more than anyone, like niche, we're making a niche game. But I loved these games. When I was growing up, Voodoo Castle was one of the first, Zork. There were these games that promised that you get just dropped into this world where you could just do anything you want. You could just type it in, just explode or jump up, and it seemed so, like so much potential to just do anything you want. Here's what they actually look like. This is the fancy version. The ones I played only had text, and you could just type, pick up steak, knife, steak Dracula. And they were just such a great way that I spent a lot of my childhood was playing these games. And I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life all the way through college. I was studying computer science and also creative writing, and I thought I'd be a writer who had some database programming job on the side to pay for that. And then I stumbled on this job listing. Sorry, this is the only copy of the job listing I could find that I'd, during the phone interview, just scribbled on incessantly. Dragon scales are very relaxing to draw when you're nervous. And this phone interview that I totally blew, and then somehow got this job, because Lucasfilm Games was looking for programmers who could write dialogue or writers who could program, or vice versa. Because in these games, when you talk to the shopkeeper, he needs to know, like, he needs to say something different to you based on, whether you already saw the pirate ship or whether you don't have the sword yet, or all these sometimes change this logic all around, but still have it sound good. And they needed that kind of a specific combination of skills. And so I lucked into that job, and the second lucky thing was the first thing I got to work on was The Secret of Monkey Island, which is, thank you. Ron Gilbert's Pirates opera, and I was called, my job description was Scumlet, so it was a very auspicious beginning. And for those of you who don't know how to play these games, you click on a verb, you can use the pirates, you can pick up the rubber chicken with the pulley in the middle and use it on the rat, and magic ensues after that. And the fun thing about these games is that you get to write the response to that. Like, what happens when you use the rubber chicken or the pulley mill on the rat? And I don't even remember what happens, but the fun was like not coming up with the obvious ones that solved the puzzles. Not that the puzzles were obvious, they're really obscure, but using some random object with some thing in the world that doesn't even make sense, but thinking that somebody somewhere is gonna think this is the solution to a puzzle. And why might they think that? What kind of person would that be? And then putting in a joke like response that one person will hear. Like that one person playing the game might get that response. And in that moment think that someone out there thinks like I do in that moment. They knew what I was thinking. And that's just so rewarding to write that line that will make someone feel that somebody else feels like they do and thinks like they do for a little bit, and that it's this way of letting someone know they aren't alone in the world, or perpetuates the myth that they aren't alone in the world, depending on how you view that thing to make life bearable. But I mean, like, it's one of the most, to me, like the most valuable thing about art is that making that connection between two people and forming that view or illusion. And then I got to work on the sequel to that, more monkeys and more pirates, and we did a game called Day of the Tentacle, which was just because we loved Chuck, thank you. We loved just Chuck Jones cartoons, like Duck 'em Muck, and we wanted to make a game that looked like a Chuck Jones cartoon, and we even tricked Chuck Jones to come to town and stay in a hotel and look at the game, because our marketing department wanted to have him say something that we could put on the box, and they never told him that. They just kind of hung around with him and showed him the game and waited for him to say something, but all he said is, "Why did you bring me here?" And then because I love like Toshiro Mifune, like Yojimbo and Road Warrior, I made this, and Hell's Angels by Hunter Thompson, made this game about being the leader of a biker gang, roughly based on my life, Full Throttle. And thank you. And you can see here that this is how you talk to people. It's very complex and rich dialogue system. And then the last adventure game I made at LucasArts was called Grim Fandango. And it's because I loved, thanks. I was studying Mexican folklore in college about the Day of the Dead and the 4-year journey of the soul, and it all sounded like such a great epic adventure. And I was also really into film noir movies, and so combined those together to make something that looked nothing like the slide, which I realized has no Mexican folklore or film noir elements really. I also like Big Daddy Roth, so I mean, it all kind of made sense, I think, if you were there at the time. But we made this game, and it was awesome. We won Game of the Year on GameSpot, and it was really fun. By the time I left LucasArts, it had sold about like 500,000 copies, which was seen as this, in the company it kind of met its numbers, but it seemed like the lore of it was like this huge flop, and it was kind of described as the last adventure game because people I knew at other companies were trying to get adventure games made, and they're like, well, Grim Fandango didn't sell anything, so you can't make your game here. So it was like this blunt instrument that I created to kill the genre. And it was really started this frustration with me of like, if you can find 500,000 people who like the thing that you're making, like that should be enough. Like you should be able to make a living off of 500,000 people, for crying out loud. And so I did that, just planted that seed in my head. And so I left LucasArts to start my own company in the year 2000. Sounds so fantastic when you say it that way. Because part of it was that I wanted to control these characters, that I made these games under the employment of George Lucas, so he owned them. And now Disney owns them, which I'm sure they're going to take really good care of them. And that's fine. Not bitter. So it was a fair deal. They paid me. And so I was like, the only way I'm going to get control of my own characters is to start my own company. And so we did. And also I wanted to have a company, like every company kind of gets, you really only get one top thing that like, you say, this is the thing that we're about more than anything else. And for us, we want to start a company that's about creativity, because you can put technology first or a lot of different things first, and they're all, I think, equally valid, and ours was going to be creativity, and it hopefully still is. But I was really scared to start companies, and a lot of people in this room have started companies, and so they're like, what's the big deal? But I mean, like, you'll probably remember, it just seems impossible before, when you're working at a company, and you're like, how does that, in the same way that when I was a kid, I used to think about video games like, oh, they're made by people much, much smarter than me, like whole big organizations, of people in lab coats, and they're made by robots assemble them or something. Like, it seemed like I just was not qualified to do this, and definitely not qualified to start my own company, and like I didn't really want to, the two big hangups I had, I remember toilet paper and copy paper. Like I was like, I don't want to worry about where the toilet paper for the bathroom comes from and how we get copy machine paper. Like I just want to make games. Like that was it's embarrassing to say now, but these are the two main reasons I never started my own company. And so other people were leaving LucasArts at the time, and they were starting their own companies, and I was like, okay, that guy, I don't want to say he's dumber than me, but he's not much smarter than me. He's like just a little bit smarter than me, and if he can do it, I'm sure I could do it. So a lot of the themes of the stuff that I've been trying to do later on that I'll get to have to do with exposing my own self as someone definitely not any smarter than anyone. And like, definitely if we can do it, so can you. So I quit, and it was like this veil was lifted. You know, after we started our own company, like looking behind the curtain at the world, all of a sudden, you know, I realized that I had been looking at a lot of things as opportunities that, if I worked hard, would be kind of handed to me. Like if I do really good at this job, my boss will give me a raise, or if I do well at this interview, I'll get this job, or if I do well in school, I'll get a good grade. And like, you know, as long as I do well, these opportunities will be handed to me. And then you realize, once you do something, you start a company, you're like, oh, it's not, that only took really half an hour with that lawyer to do that. And like, I wonder, you start to see things as like, there are all these opportunities that you can make for yourselves, and the world kind of changed for me, and I realized that they're just out there for the taking, if you will. And a lot of people in this room have done that same thing, so I don't want to go over that, but you've had that same feeling, which is crazy. And this is Double Fine, and their friends and family and dogs and children. And it's been great, and it's been a company that we've been dedicated to that value, that creativity was our main thing. And we happily, for the first 10 years of our existence, I mean, not happily all the time, but like we did definitely make, we made one game after another, and that's exactly how many we made. We made one game and then another for 10 years. It took us 10 years to make those games. This was about a boy who can go inside of people's minds, and this one is because I love heavy metal and I wanted to make a game about heavy metal. So we made those two games, but we made them in the traditional publishing model of games. And I don't know if you guys are in the games industry, but the games industry is horrible. It's horrible. It's a horrible thing. No, I mean, wait, the people are great. The deals are terrible. The publishing deals, like, and they're very similar to in music and movies, where you have this, you know, this deal where you get an advance against royalties, and then you have to, if your game makes money, you pay them back, and then you get a cut. Except for you don't have to pay them back once, you have to pay them back about 3 or 4 times before you get a cut, and so you end up spending all the money they gave you, and then you have no money, and then you have to fire everybody, or you have to take the next horrible deal which comes along, and then you're in this constant cycle of like really never like owing your soul to the company store and never getting free of this. Always going out of business almost, unless you have you're lucky enough to be the Rolling Stones, really, of games. Like, to have a really big hit, and then you can make 4 or 5 times your money, and then you get a little cut of that. So it's frustrating. But we did it anyway because we loved these games, and the whole goal was just to be able to do what we loved, and that was enough for a while. But it was very stressful for the team, obviously, to almost go out of money. It was like swinging through the jungle, vine to vine, and we always hope we can grab the next vine before this vine is out, but we're always just having to let go and just hope we find a vine before we hit the ground. So we're always thinking, like, there's got to be a better way to doing this thing. And also, our company was kind of bulging at the seams, not just actually size-wise, but skill-wise. Like, we had all the games up to that point had been my idea, like, I want to make this game. So I'd have an art director and a lead programmer and a lead designer and so on. And so the whole company only had one art director, one lead programmer. And it's like, as people started to become senior, you know, been there 10 years, like, I think I want to move up. And the only way they could move up is someone got fired or if I got killed. So I was like, this is an uncomfortable position to be in. People were looking at me funny. And so we started thinking about a new way to do things. I was really inspired by, so Paul Newman. I'm always really inspired by Paul Newman because he made a lot of money being a movie star, and he could have given all that money to charity, and it would have been a great thing, but he made instead salad dressing, and he made a whole company that makes salad dressing and a whole bunch of other food products, and they give all their money to charity. And this has always been this crazy idea to me that he made, instead of one donation, he made this machine that like makes donations, and he's passed away and he's dead, and this machine is still making money for the causes he cares about. And how badass is that? I mean, that's crazy. So not that I was going to do something that philanthropic, you know, but you know, maybe there's a way, instead of just making this one thing after another, I can create this machine that will make like a perpetual creativity machine that will keep generating ideas and protecting them and nurturing them to the point where they can be released to people. And here's that one idea being made